So 2 weeks ago, the car decided to overheat. So that following weekend, we did a thermostat and a water pump job in the car. Replaced the coolant at that time. And then 2 days later, the car completely overheated to basically catastrophic failure. She was driving home. Basically, the car shut down and there was coolant all over the place. So we're trying to figure out what happened or what's going on. But one of the first things that we did, and you can kind of see how everything's kind of torn apart here right now because I have been working on a little bit. One of the first things we did was pull the plugs out of this thing, and that didn't paint a pretty picture. So if you look here at the spark plugs, this third one is the number one spark plug, and you can see how corroded and bad that in shape that is. So I kind of believe or want to think that this car has been eating coolant for a while. And the overheating 2 weeks ago was just kind of the start of it. And then when we did all the work on it, then it just completely catastrophically failed for whatever reason. I still don't know why. Also, unfortunately, we're gonna have to replace the radiator because these are the fan bolt holes, and the one on the bottom either had the wrong bolt or something. And I think when thought I was loosening it and I tightened it, I think I put a hole or cracked the rad, so it started leaking. So we have a few things that we need to figure out with this, but I believe that the head gasket has failed, and I believe because when I put the borescope down number one hole, the piston looked like it was brand new, and there was nothing on it. It was very clean, very shiny, like it had gotten steamed for some time. So that just kind of lead me to believe that there's definitely an issue in this. So basically what I've been doing, just taking things out. So the fans are out. Because I got to pull the radiator, you got to take the grill off because the radiator bolts there's one here and then one over there. And you can't get that off without either taking the bumper or the grill out. So I have to just take the grill out. Got the fans out. Started undoing all the electrical in here so that we can start getting all the electrical off the top so that we can start getting ready to pull the valve cover, the cylinder head, and the intake manifold. So got a lot of work to do, but it needs to get done. Okay, so just got the radiator out of the car. Nothing too crazy to take out. Being it's an automatic, you've got two of the lines on the bottom there. You can see the metal here, so you can see the one there. So there's one there, and then there's another one down there. Underneath the bumper cover, you've got a bolt there, you've got a bolt there, and you've got the two that hold up the condenser as well, which are bolting into here, I think. Now, my suspicions were right. The bolt that they had in here was too long, and it did pop a hole in the back of this when I thought I was loosening it, but apparently I was tightening it, and then it put a hole and then it just started puking out. So unfortunately, radiator needs to be replaced in this as well. So I'm gonna add that to the list amongst everything else. But yeah, so we'll just keep moving and just clear out everything so I can take this head off. Probably gonna be like a standard 4-cylinder engine. Probably gonna have to take the motor mount off, and probably gonna have to support it from the bottom and then take the side cover off and everything like that. But right now, as you can see, I've got the main harness sitting up over there, or part of the main harness on the top sitting up over there. So I'm going to try and get the rest of everything connected, or that is connected in here, up over there. Okay, so got a bit of work done, got a lot further. Exhaust manifold is now off. Intake manifold is off. Got a lot of leaks over here. found this, but this switch is dead, so we're going to replace that. Knock sensor is down here. That is leaking, so we're probably going to have to replace that. We are on the intake manifold, and the intake manifold has 4 bolts for the throttle body. In typical fashion that we've been finding with this car, we're missing bolts all over, so there was only 2 on here, not the 4 as it should be. Also, this water pipe down here should have 2 bolts, but there was only 1 again, so whoever was in this car last shorted us on a lot of the bolts. And while it's not too bad of an issue, certain things like the throttle body can become a vacuum leak issue, so we got to fix that. A little bit of a shortcut, just took the water neck off the block, kept all majority of the lines together because there was no coolant in here. It didn't leak anything out crazy. Power steering pump over here looks like it's leaking, so we'll have to figure that out. So we're about, I'd say 85% of the way there. Now we're basically having to come over to this side, and we're going to be having to take off the motor mount, the brackets, and then we'll be working under here because we'll have to take off this cover so we can get to the timing covers and take those off. And once we have all that, then it's the valve cover and pulling the head bolts and seeing where we're at. So that's where we're at right now. So hopefully soon we'll have this off. It is a little warm in my shop again today. I don't know if it'll show up in here for us, but it's usually sitting around 33 or 34 degrees. Yeah, 32 degrees in here today. So it's getting a little warm and a little humid and muggy. So gonna make some more progress. It's now 3:45. So we'll see where we get probably in the next 40 minutes or so. Okay, so I just want to make a quick little snip here. You can see I got the motor mount off, getting everything ready here. But came into a bit of a snafu here with the power steering pump and trying to get this off. Apparently, if you look down there, you can see the threads out right now. There's 3 bolts, 12 millimeter. There's one right there that you can see the shiny threads. There's one over here in the back, kind of hard to see down in the dark there. And then there's one further down on the bottom. Very difficult to get to all 3 of these. If you do have a ratcheting 12, it'll make this job a whole lot easier. If not, well, bite your tongue and give her hell, and you're gonna be there for a while. So that's where I'm kind of hung up right now, trying to get that off before I move further along. So if you're wondering how to get that power steering pump off, that's where your bolts are. All right, it's been a couple of days. I'm back out in the shop. Had to do some research because when I looked at the service manual for this thing, one of the things that it said that you have to do is drop the transfer case because the oil pan is a very large part of the underbelly of this car. A couple of things. That's the cross member, and that's the catalytic converter, and I had to take both of those out because underneath the car, the bolts for the oil pan are right underneath the cross brace and underneath the catalytic converter, so you can't get to them. And then I'll go down and show you here in a second, but there's a little inspection cover that I have to take off and a bolt that might be a little bit difficult to get at. But once I have those, I think the pan should drop. So I'll just show you here in a second. So up here, right up there in the top is a bolt that you got to take off. And then there's a bolt right in there. That one right there is a bolt, but you can't get it because the inspection cover, let's see if I can get a bit of light on here. You can see that the bolt is blocked by the inspection cover. So you got that one bolt. Trying to get a good angle here, but it's really tough. So there's that bolt there, right there in the center-ish. There's a bolt right there, and then the other one right there, which is behind the cover. So what I got to do is I got to take off these 2 bolts, and then this cover can come off, and I take off that 3rd one, and I'm pretty sure that this cover can come off. The brace runs, if I remember correctly, from these 2 holes here across and up to the front, up in this area. And then there's a couple of bolts back up in here that the brace covers that you can't get at. So you got to take care of those. But other than that, I'm hoping that I can get this out without having to drop the transfer case. So I'm gonna get working on this and seeing what happens. And if I get the oil pan out without dropping the transfer case, you'll be the first to know. Okay, so as I anticipated, that bolt from up under the belly there was definitely a challenge. The biggest reason why it's a challenge for is that the bolt is on an angle in comparison to the transfer case. So just getting another pen here. So if you were to look at the side of it, so the flange is like that, and the transfer case is kind of like here, the bolt is here, and what happens is you can get your socket on, but you can't get enough room to maneuver anything around. So what I found is if you use 1/4-inch drive, the 1/4-inch drive is enough to allow you to get to that bolt in there. On some weird news, I found these bolts, these 2 here, were in the oil pan. This one was kicking around in the ring gear area. Turn on my light. And if you look underneath, I haven't checked all of them yet, but you can see just how mangled those 2 bolts are, and there's 6 in there. So I don't know what the hell happened to those bolts, but something got angry, and the only thing I can think of is that these are possibly these bolts are possibly flywheel bolts. I don't know, so we'll have to check that out. On good news, oil in the oil pan looks good. It doesn't look like there was any coolant mixed in there, so I don't really know particularly what happened with this. So I'm thinking it overheated, but instead of going down, it just blew right out the radiator cap. So I'm hoping that's all that I really have to worry about. Typical RTV inside. There is, like you can see, like there is some debris in the bottom of this, but I don't know if it's debris or if it's just roughness capping of the pan. So I'm not overly concerned about how it looks. So, and I mean, you can see here lines from the oil where it stayed clean. So, whoops. So at this point, I mean, the bottom end looks fine. I don't have any issues with it. So the last thing that I have to do is we'll be taking off the covers. All right, so continuing on the battle of not wanting to pull this motor, I have now found the next stage that makes this very difficult. So the timing cover has a stud right here that comes through this hole. There's a bolt that holds here. That stud feeds down into here, and because the frame rail is right here, you don't have enough room to pull the cover with that stud between these 2. So you basically have to come up with a solution to figure out how you're going to get that off. So I don't want to pull the cover, so I did the good old double nut and pulled it out. Thankfully it wasn't Loctite or anything in there, so it came out pretty easy. So at this point, we now have the timing cover off, the valve cover off. so making a little bit of headway, just keep running into these little snags because, you know, I chose not to pull the motor out of this. Okay, so another night out in the shop. Probably gonna try spending an hour or two out here, depending. See where we're at, see what we're doing, see how far we get. But at this point, I've got all the components out. They're all in bags on my bench over there. Camshafts are over in that cabinet just to be safe. So now what we're going to be doing is pulling the head bolts. And once we have the head bolts out, we're going to pull the head off, and then we're going to do further inspection and diagnosis and see what's going on. So far, everything looks good. Even the oil on the top end of the head looks good. So a theory that I have right now on this is that right down here on this side, right here, is the water neck for the car, which the rad hose connects to, which comes up to this side in here for the upper radiator hose. So my theory on this thing is that yes, it overheated, but because of the direction of how it overheated, I have a feeling, or it may seem like that coolant got into the combustion chamber, or the head gasket failed, and it just basically went the path of least resistance and went right up the radiator hose, hit the rad cap, and just blew it right off. So I'm thinking and I'm hoping that's what we're dealing with here. So I will put you on the tripod, which you're on now, set up and get you showing, and we will go from there. I mean, it could be that. But that'd be really dumb.
What's that bolt?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm trying to pull this off, but I'm having some troubles, but it looks like there's like a weird Allen bolt right there, which is like some weird random little bolt to hold it in for something. I'm not sure, so I'll have to see if I can find that Allen bolt for that. Okay, so that little bolt down in there, yeah, it holds the head down, so the head's free.
What size Allen was it?
It looks like a 5 mil. Yep. All right, let's rip this head off.
Dun dun dun.
All right.
Am I filming over here?
Pointed at this. So I don't see anything specific that looks like the head gasket failed. It all looks like it's intact from the top, from the bottom side anyways. There's no strange marks. It's all in good shape. But we'll take a look at the other side. Not really seeing anything in here, but there's a telltale sign that somebody had already been in here once, because this is a non-OEM head gasket, because right here it says Felpro. It says Felpro Permatorque. So somebody's been in this car once before, which would kind of explain how it's had something done to it, because when we bought this car, they said the motor was replaced. But it looks like the motor wasn't necessarily replaced and it had a head gasket issue before. So now, take a look at the cylinder heads here, or the pistons. We can see some debris in there, but nothing crazy. The heads are super clean because it does look like it got blasted. Looking at the cylinder walls, if you can't, I don't know if you can see it very well on camera, but there's still cross hatching in there. There's a bit of smoothness, but I mean, for the mileage that it has, it's not bad. I don't feel nothing with my fingers. So everything looks good there. I don't see, everything looks good around that, so I don't see anything cracked or broken in that sense. So I would say, based off of my initial findings, that they used either that this thing had overheated at some point in its past, and it already had some work done to it, which I'm really hoping isn't the case, because if that is the case and the head's already been surfaced once, we may not be able to surface this head. So the shop will have to tell us that to see what's going on. But at this point, I think my theory holds true, that it basically just, like I said, the thermostat housing is right about here. And so because the thermostat housing is right here, if the head gasket failed or the head warped, it would just allow the coolant to come up out of here, right into that, and just basically pressurize the entire system, come up the rad hose, hit the cap, and just explode. I can't see anything else that's going on with this. So I'll clean up the surface of this surface. That will have to go to the machine shop. The bottom side of it looks fine. I don't see anything irregular there, but knowing now that there's been a head job done on this at some point, it makes me question as many things as I've already done on this thing, like, did they use new head bolts? Okay, so camera died, so we're gonna have to make this quick because I don't have much battery juice left. Head gasket, non-OEM, shows Velcro on there. So this head, for whatever reason, has been off. Do not know why. If anyone is curious, the VIN on the engine is just above the starter, so we checked that. It is in fact different, so this motor has been swapped from a different one. But I still go back to, if it was swapped, then why was the head pulled? We know the rad, water pump, thermostat, and a few other things were done before we bought it. So I'm curious if perhaps this thing had overheated at some point in the past, and if that's the case, was the head done properly, and or the head bolts, were they torqued properly? So if that head has been worked on previously, and I take it to the machine shop and they try and surface it and it's down too much already, we may be looking at a new cylinder head for this thing. So next course of action and next plan is to get that to the shop, get them to look at it, and see what's going on with it, see if it is in fact warped, or see if it was just head bolt issue or something just as a strange anomaly. But I can't see anything directly or indirectly which could have caused this. Head gasket doesn't look like it failed, so if the head's warped, then it would explain the coolant getting past everything and coming out the way it did. So yeah, so that's it for figuring out what the hell happened with this. Like I said, cross hatching is good. Pistons have no movement in them, so I know the rings are good. So I have high hopes that this motor is in good enough shape, that at the very least, if the head is warped and it gets surfaced and we reinstall it properly, it'll be good. If not, and we have to buy a new head, well, same ballpark. We will make sure that we install it properly, because my entire journey of this has found a lot of backyard mechanic type fixes on it, and I realize I'm a backyard mechanic, but I try and put stuff back as good, if not better, when I take it apart. So hopefully you learned some stuff from me taking this apart. I know I learned some stuff. I've never worked on Suzuki's before, so this was a bit of a new one for me. I would probably say if you have a shop and the means and the time to do it, just pull the engine to do this. Nothing was super difficult to come out, but there are some places and some things in this that would be easier if it was out of the motor, out of the car. So thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and we will see you in the next one.